Hello, everyone. Welcome to Coffee with Derek and Craig. Great morning for me, nice and bright, and well, the sun is coming up and everything. Seeing the critters out running around in the yard and stuff, Craig. But I'm trying to get that third cup of coffee in me right now.
I just looked out the back door and see the stupid groundhog running around in the backyard.
Oh, no kidding. I got an armadillo, which is kind of on the same level as a groundhog, really. And armadillos, I mean, they're cute to look at, running around and everything, but this one's as big as a football, and they like to undermine all the, stuff on like your shed. They'll dig underneath the blocks and stuff and collapse things, and they're annoying to me, anyways. But yeah, they was even out running around this morning. But I wanted to kind of talk a little bit today about metal detecting etiquette, we call it. And try to spell that at 6 o'clock in the morning. Oh my God, Craig! I was trying to get that done. Weird spelling, not the way I thought it was. But at any rate, yeah, we know that we have a lot of people that are kind of getting into the hobby, and they've been messaging us. But we wanted to kind of talk at least a little bit about it this morning. That there is, a detecting etiquette out there for hunters. And, most of us, most of the people kind of abide by it. It's common sense rules, so to speak, that we follow when we're hunting or we're on somebody's property and that kind of thing. And just thought it'd be a good idea to kind of bring it up to make, some of these, well, even the experienced hunters kind of think about what they're doing, just so we don't upset anybody. And it doesn't happen often, but you hear these horror stories. And we had it actually happen down here in Florida where one man, caused a big problem for people down along the beaches and stuff just with his general attitude and causing problems, and almost had them to the point where they wanted to start giving permits, and it was going to cost you like $100 for a permit to hunt certain beaches and stuff like that, where now I think you can hunt just about most of the beaches in Florida except when they're posted. There's not very many that are, but you can hunt between the dunes and the water at most of them, especially on the west coast here, Clearwater, St. Pete, and everything. And there's a lot of people that do. And I guess he essentially ran his mouth to a couple of the resort owners, managers, or whatever, and was really, really obnoxious. And it doesn't happen very often, but there's always that one bad apple, so to speak. But one of the first things that we always say, bite your tongue. Don't get attitude with people if you can possibly help it. Good attitude goes a long way. And, if people, if somebody asks you to leave, if you're on private property and they ask you to leave, obviously, you leave. You don't cause a big scene. This guy was on public beaches and stuff, but it does apply because, Craig, you can have 500 good metal detectorists, very respectful and everything, but they're only going to remember that one person that ticked them off or ticked off an area, and that's who they're going to remember, and we get stereotyped then. And, I've seen this happen at, over in, Webster, Florida, where, we were hunting a public property, which we're allowed to do. And the first thing, it was a police officer, actually. He goes, well, you're not allowed to hunt the park over here. And, okay. He goes, well, one of you guys was out here and he left an open hole. Didn't fill in his hole. And a lady walked through the park and broke her ankle in it, and we got sued. Which, I can totally get. I understand where they're coming from. But fill in your holes. That's one of the main ones when you're hunting, no matter where you're hunting at. Even in the woods, kick some dirt into it. It really takes 2 seconds to do that. But, by one person not doing it, it ruined it for everybody in the park over there, which I'm not a big park hunter, but it's just the principle of it. You lose one thing, they can take another. Craig, I know you probably up there have run into it from time to time because you have probably a lot more, hunters up there. But I know the relic hunters are kind of, if you're out in the middle of the woods or something like that, I've seen you always kick dirt in your hole. It doesn't have to be perfect because you're not, it's like in the middle of the woods. I mean, there's a lot of tree stumps and everything else.
Yeah, there's one thing, if you're digging in a park and it's in the middle of the summer and the ground is real dry, you probably don't want to really do it. uh, it's harder to dig, but then when you dig a plug, it's going to kill the grass. And,
right.
I can see it in my yard. I've dug a few plugs lately, and we're getting some rain, but basically it's hot summer and the ground is drying out a little bit. So I noticed a couple of my plugs, didn't look that great, but they'll come back. But it's when people see that in the park, they go, oh my God, they're ruining the grass and everything. It'll come back, but it just doesn't look good, and it
sticks
out like a target. It's like a target. It sticks out.
Yeah. Well, too, we dig this. We always talk about a 3-sided plug, and usually it used to be where you dig, like a plug, like about the size of a coffee can lid, around all the way around, pop the plug out of the ground, pop the dirt out of the ground onto like if you're hunting somebody's yard or a park or something like that, onto a towel, or I've seen people use frisbees, whatever. Find your target, and then you could flop the dirt and the grass right back into the plug, the right side up, and it would be fine. But what we found over the years is it's better with a 3-sided. In other words, dig 3 sides of the hole and flip the grass, in the sod, and plug everything up onto a towel or something like that you can use, and get your target. That way when you fold it back, it still has some of the grass connected to the plug, and it comes back a lot faster, and you really don't even notice it, really. I mean, you might have some, like down here we get the sand, that you could kind of see the sand around the hole. You can't ever get all of it. But after the first rain or whatever, it's gone, because the last thing you want to do is go through somebody's, front yard, backyard, if you're hunting that kind of an area, and leave it sticking out like a sore thumb. Try to do your best to, and I've even run a rake. I bring a rake with me on the back of my pickup truck, and if I'm hunting somebody's backyard or something, even though they say it's okay, don't worry about it, it'll come back really fast, I still run through there with a rake and kind of just rake up at the end of the day. I don't do a lot of house sites that, they're real fancy or anything like that, but, you go where the relics are, where the coins are and stuff, and, you're just showing a lot of respect for the property. I always like to leave a property, cleaner than what I found it. And I show the landowners a lot of times too. They want to see what you find. I show them everything, the junk and the good stuff, because you start finding nails and pieces of steel, big chunks of aluminum, canned slaw. You show that to them. Say, oh yeah, this is all the junk I found. I got it out of your yard so you didn't pop any tires or whatever, so nobody gets their foot cut on it. They kind of, I would too as a property owner. Well, appreciate it. You're just removing a hazard, and it shows respect for, you're showing them respect by doing that, and they feel safer with you there, and they're more apt to say good things about you to friends and stuff like that. So it kind of works both ways. It's part of being polite and stuff like that. One of the other ones I can think of is, like if you're hunting beaches and stuff, it's always better to go early or late. Not only you're not in direct sunlight and stuff like that, but if you're going to a beach and, it could be hundreds of people out there at some times, and you kind of feel like you're in the way. If you've never metal detected a beach, you just got all these people, you're working around them, you're swinging a metal detector. If you go out earlier in the morning, which is better anyways, because you don't have the direct sunlight, you don't have as many people out there, so you can kind of hunt, and you don't have to worry about people don't bother you.
It's kind of the same thing with a park too.
Yeah.
You don't want to go out in the middle of the summer, in the middle of the day, where everybody's out there messing around, and it's probably better to do it in the winter or the fall and the spring, and plus the grass is more dormant in the winter, and you can dig a plug and it's not going to do any damage usually.
Right.
When you put it back, it'll come back a lot better. But I always like to, when I did parks, I always, I had a permit at one time for Arlington County, and I had, a ton of parks to hunt. And I got so I'd pick a new park each day, just to scope it out. But if I saw like a ton of people out there, I wouldn't stop. I'd just, go on to the next park.
Right.
There was, it was funny, even with the permit, I got people yelling at me and stuff, and I got police called on me twice, and I remember I was hunting this one park where I used to play tennis a lot, and I found a round ball and a flat button and a Mercury dime around this whole ball field, and I knew it was an area where the Union troops had camped higher up the hill on the other side of the creek, and I had like 3 people come over and saw me, and they wanted to, and I showed them what I found, and they thought it was pretty cool and everything, and but I noticed this one guy I noticed he walked by about 5 times, and he had like this glare on his face, and I didn't think much about it, but all of a sudden he shows up with this, this 6'9" park ranger.
It's a monster.
So I'm digging a bug, and the guy starts yelling at me, and I go, "Hey man, don't be yelling at me. I got a permit." And
right.
So the guy says, "You got a permit?" And I said, "Yeah, I got it. It's probably signed by your boss." So anyway, I pulled it out and showed it to him, and he's going, "Oh yeah, this looks good. That's definitely that is my boss and everything." And I said, "Well, I applied. I heard you could get a permit, and I applied for one. And this is it."
Right.
And so the other guy, I knew he'd call, because I thought that guy called this guy because he kept walking by all the time. And so anyway, he wanted to see the permit, and so I got my body between him and the police officers or the rangers, so he couldn't see it. And he was demanding to see the permit, and I said, "No, I don't want you to see it."
Yeah.
I said, "You have no right to see it." I said, "He's the one that's authority,
Yeah, as long as you're complying with what the law says, you're good.
Yeah. So
some people are like that. They just want to cause problems, unfortunately.
Yeah. But there was another permission I had over the years up kind of about a mile from my house, and I had noticed there was some people hunting there, and then a friend of mine that I started hunting with said he had permission and found some belt buckles and stuff and bullets, and so I went up there and I saw the pastor, and his last name I think was Lynch, and so I said I went to school with a guy named Eddie Lynch, and he goes, "That's my son." And I said, "Oh, okay." And so I said, "Yeah, I remember him from high school. I think he was in a couple of my classes." So he said, "Oh, okay." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I know you want, And I
it's
said,
funny how that works, Greg. You make friends with
Yeah.
them pretty quick, and it's because we're not doing anything wrong, so to speak. It gets some people. They like to, mind other people's business. It happens once in a while. It's only happened once or twice to me over the past, 20 years. And it does get annoying and stuff, but, you just gotta, it's kind of like on the beach, Craig. People always walking up to you. The first thing, "What are you finding? You finding any rings? You finding any gold?" And I've always told the guys, "Hey, I don't care if you found a pile of gold rings. Don't tell them anything. Say, I found, some pull tabs and some spare change, some dimes and stuff," because you don't want them glued to you for the next 3 hours, and then like over your shoulder. You don't mind showing people, and it's always good to kind of talk about the hobby and stuff, but you're there to hunt, and that's your alone time, so to speak. And, you're out there having fun, and you don't want a bunch of people crowding around, because they will sometimes. They all start watching what you're digging, and they're almost digging it up for you as fast as you're finding the stuff, which can be fun sometimes, but not all the time.
Yeah, I remember I was hunting Fort Belvoir Army Base, and had a permit that my dad got from I think it was the Corps of Engineers, and he was an engineer that he actually worked there, but I remember you could hunt at this one school, and then I got a permit for where I could hunt the base, as long as it wasn't people's yards and stuff. But it got so where some of the people would like the kids what happened was the kids would start falling, you know.
Oh yeah,
And we
yeah.
had like about 8 or 10 kids, and they'd be all around the plug, you know, and they'd be reaching in the hole, and and I'd have to go, no, don't reach in the hole, I'll let you see whatever I find, and so I remember I was in this one backyard, and it was like about 8 different apartments, brick apartments, and they all had clotheslines. And the clotheslines, there was like about 8 clotheslines, real long ones. And they're some of the best places to hunt. And I remember this one clothesline, I dug 177 coins under in about 3 hours under there.
Oh my God, you dug your butt off.
Yeah, I mean, it was like all kinds of stuff, like keys and little toy cars and, wheat pennies, and I probably dug about 8 silver coins.
Schools are awesome. I like old schools. Old schools are great.
Well, anyway, I started having all these kids, so they were bugging me. So I started telling them, I said, I'll give you something if you leave me alone. And they're like, what will you give me? So I said, how about a little car, And, oh, yeah. I said, now you got to promise if I give this to you, you head on away, leave me alone.
Bribery works every time.
Well, anyway, all these kids started going, well, what can I have, And so I was giving them all this stuff, out of my bag, I wasn't giving them any coins, but I was giving them, things I found. And I think one of the little girls, I had like a little aluminum ring, fake ring,
right. Bling ring.
She loved that. And so anyway, this one kid says, well, I'm the only one left. I haven't got anything. And so I said, well, the only thing I got left is this key, And he goes, oh yeah, that looks cool. I'll take the key,
Yep.
Well, anyway.
Future relic hunter right there, brother.
Well, anyway, about 10 minutes later, I hear all this commotion, and he was going around testing the key in all the doors and found one that opened.
That's
with
good.
The key. I was like, oh my God, I better get out of here.
Yeah, no kidding. You bring that up, Craig, and we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, how we got started in the hobby and stuff. And that is the first time I ever had seen somebody metal detecting. I was in 4th grade. It was summertime, and we were hanging out at the school. We'd ride our bikes over there or whatever, 4th graders. And there was a guy using a metal detector. And I can remember it was like a GPX. This was probably be in the, late 70s, early 80s anyways. And it looked, from what I can remember, it's been a long time ago, but it looked like a GPX of some kind, or that style of metal detector. And that's when, that's the first time I'd ever seen anybody metal detecting or heard of it. And just after that, me and my dad tried to build one out of popular mechanics or something like that. They had a way of making one, and it was cheap, and it probably wouldn't have even got a penny at 2 inches down. It was made, out of electronic headphones and stuff. You had to rewire them, solder them, and we did that as a father-son thing, trying to fix up that. But yeah, that was the first time it was at a school, and that's what first turned me on to metal detecting when I was just a kid. And the guy was finding change, and I thought it was neat, all the little toys and stuff he was finding, and that brought back some good memories. Craig, thanks for bringing that up. It's been a long time, because it's like when you got started, same way. I guess we just don't really think about it a whole lot. When's the first time that you actually saw a metal detector? And that was what brought it back for me. But even then, the guy, I can remember him talking about. He goes, he's digging up stuff. I said, why are you filling in the holes? Well, he said, well, you always fill in the holes so nobody trips in them. I mean, to a 4th grader, I don't even think about it that way. But, that cover your holes, fill in the holes and stuff like that so nobody hurts themselves in it. And he had a big, some kind of a bag that had tin, soda cans and whatever else. So even way back then, they would clean up after themselves and everything. And I remember he had a pile of change. My God, he was pulling out handfuls out of his fine bag. And I know he wasn't probably using a pulse induction metal detector. I don't even know if they were GPXs were around, but it was just almost that same style of metal detector in the 80s. It had a box on the back of it like a GPX and everything, but yeah, it was pretty good memory there of when I first heard about metal detecting or what have you. Some of the other etiquette things, report dangerous things. If you see something going on somebody's property, cows get out or somebody's trespassing on their property or a broken fence, the fence is down, whatever. Make sure you tell the landowner or somebody, even if it's one of the neighbors, say, hey, I was out here metal detecting and I saw the barbed wire fence is broken right there and I know you have cattle. I mean, you're helping them out a lot. It shows, again, you're showing respect for the property and you're keeping an eye on things. And I've had certain things happen over the years where, they have, 100 head of cattle out there. I've seen them get loose. It's a mess. The farmers like trying to get them in and cars are swerving. It's a bad deal. So, that applies pretty much to everybody. We have a lot of cattle down here and I know, Ohio, Virginia and everything else, they're goats or whatever else. If you see something wrong or somebody snooping around, it's always good to tell the landowner, and that way he's got a heads up and they know what's going on, or it helps them out. That's why I always, when I get permission on a property, I usually have business cards with me, just pretty much my name, and we recover stuff and help them find survey spikes and everything. But on the back of the card, I always say, hey, can I get your phone number, or can you write your phone number down in your name on the back of this card? That way, if I'm out metal detecting and the law stops by or a neighbor stops by and wants to know what I'm doing there, I can show it to him, say, hey, here's his phone number. This is the guy that owns the property, and I have permission. Well, that works both ways. You have a phone number to call if you see something going on that you think is a bad thing or whatever, or just unusual, so you can kind of help out the property owner. Help people too. I mean, sometimes you'll be out with maybe somebody that's hardly ever metal detected, and it's good to pass on the information to them of etiquette, of how to do stuff, so that it's not stuff you think about when you're first starting to metal detect. It's the etiquette part of it. It's real important that we teach, our kids and friends and stuff that are younger, that maybe have not done this hobby before, what to do in certain situations, just as that, general conversation kind of thing. So they have an idea and they'll think back on it. And if they're in that situation, say, oh, I probably should say something, or I should do this or that, and it'd be the right thing to do. And that way we don't get any bad publicity and stuff. It doesn't take much, guys. I mean, for those of you new to the hobby, it just, like I said, you could have 100 people that metal detected a property and never had a problem with anybody, and then it takes one person to screw up and cause a big ruckus, and the next thing you know, we're all banned from detecting, or they put all these rules on us. You
can have all the equipment in the world, but the main thing is you need a place to hunt.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you can have all the greatest, deepest machines, but if you don't have a place to hunt, you can't use them.
Right.
But, I had a site right down the street, and it was, I'd asked a couple people. There's an abandoned house that I think was right around 1905, and I saw 3 different dates on it from like 1905 up to 1910. But it was kind of a dilapidated house, but it was a big property, a half an acre property, and it was right down about a block from my house. And I got the guy next door, the people that rent there, know I'm metal detected, and so the one guy, Jim, guy was going to buy was looking to buy the property, and he needed to find out if the sewer was any good, and they'd gone from the street and they'd run into a dog leg and they couldn't get the camera through to see if it was clear, and so he dug a big hole and he had this cheap detector, and so Jim called me on the phone and said, there's this guy out here that's looking for a sewer, and he's having trouble, and he has a cheap detector. And I told him that you might be able to find it for him, And I said, okay, I'll come down. I went down about 5 minutes later and found it and actually pinpointed it for him with the pinpointer, and he wasn't sure. And I said, well, he had a big, heavy shovel. So I said, well, hit the dirt right there real hard where I just pinpointed it, and he bounced it right off the pipe. So then he was, all right. So anyway, he took a little hammer. He had like a little small sledgehammer, and he knocked a hole in the pipe, and then he actually had a laptop hooked up to the camera, and he threaded it through, and it was clear. So he said, I'll be definitely, I'm going to probably build a house here. And so he was a builder, and well, anyway, he starts reaching and he pulls out his wallet, and he goes, well, how much do I owe you, And I said, look, I don't want any money, but I was just wondering if maybe I could metal detect the property. So he goes, man, that's a great deal.
Yeah.
He goes, I haven't bought it yet, but I'm going to do it. So I'll give you a call. And so I gave him my number, and I think it was like 2 days later he called me and he said, you can hunt until spring.
There you go.
So I said, oh, great. And but anyway, he said, I'm not going to get. He said, you can give anybody you want permission, but I'm not going to give anybody permission. But you can if you want. And I said, okay. So there was a couple guys that came over, and when I started hunting it, people were driving by, and I actually let a mother and her daughter hunt, and I actually let them use my Equinox, and I let two other guys one guy that lives down the street, he's a relic hunter, I let him hunt, and then another guy I didn't know real well. It was a friend of his, but one day I was walking by and I see a guy out there hunting that I didn't get permission to, and he'd been bugging the owner, I guess, and the guy, the owner, said, that I had, only I could get permission, and so the guy, I said, well, he said, well, I asked, but I figured, it's 3 weeks had gone by and it'd be okay to do it.
And that's what I was going to bring up, Craig, too. The etiquette thing. If you don't have permission, man, don't jump a fence. The way you got to think about it is this: do you really want to be looking over your shoulder the whole time you're metal detecting, wondering if a landowner or somebody's going to catch you on a piece of property? I mean, some people like the nighthawk or whatever you want to call it in the woods and stuff is one thing, but when you're on, that kind of a property, house property, whatever, I mean, do you really want to look over your shoulder the whole time? If you don't have permission, don't go. I've had it happen, I call it claim jumping or whatever, where, it took me a long time to get a permission on a property, and here's this guy jumping the fence and leaving open holes everywhere and almost ruined it for me. And, it was actually a place where I was finding a lot of cool stuff, and, he didn't think anything was wrong with it. I said, you don't trespass. It's like trespassing on somebody's property. You get permission first. It's good etiquette. Another thing, Trick, is we're running low on time right now, is bring the right equipment to do, a property. If you're on somebody's house property, don't bring a great big shovel, and, know your detector. If you have these really deep targets, make sure you kind of know what you're digging and do it accordingly. Don't dig a trench and make their yard looks like a rototiller went through it. I mean, you got to be a little bit more selective in a situation like that.
It's good to use a pinpointer too. That'll help you, locate the target without making a lot of damage too.
Yeah, a lot of times these pinpointers too, depending on which one you have, are pretty powerful. And if something's like 4 inches in the ground, you can almost pop the plug. We'll talk about that too, popping coins and stuff with probes and stuff sometime or another one of these morning shows. These are just a few. I mean, there's probably like 50 so-called rules or etiquette things that we should be talking about. We kind of touched on, a portion of the big no-no kind of ones. But, the biggest thing is be polite, be respectful to people and show, as far as the hobby goes, be a good ambassador, help others out with their metal detecting if they need it. It's supposed to be fun and it is, but you don't want to lose spots to hunt on. and because they're hard enough to come across as it is. Finding a good spot, you don't want to lose it because of
yeah, and
problem.
you might even want to share with the landowner.
Yeah.
And especially if he has a big property and you want to come back.
Yeah, involve them somehow, and maybe they want to try metal detecting. Bringing somebody else in the hobby is a good thing, I think. I mean, it really, even though everybody says everything's drying up, no, it isn't. There's still stuff there to find. Maybe not Civil War, but there's other things to find. You never know what you're going to dig out of the ground, and the more people you have metal detecting, it opens up more properties for people to detect. And it's just that way, and it's good camaraderie, good, friendships have been made, metal detecting and bottle hunting, prospecting, that kind of thing. So I guess, Craig, we'll wrap it up for tonight, for today. You can tell I'm still waking up. I need more coffee.
But it was still night a few hours ago.
Yeah, no kidding, brother. But yeah, we'll wrap it up for now. And thanks for listening. Tell a friend, and like and follow the show. We try to do these morning shows at least Monday and Friday, and we're going to try to do it on Wednesdays also. But my schedule gets kind of crazy then. We do our night shows, a regular hardcore metal detecting radio show on Thursday and Saturday nights. It's an open format. We kind of just let the show go whichever way it wants to go. And topic wise and everything, it makes it, it just makes it more exciting, and it can be comical and everything else. You never know what's going to happen, even on chat when we have the chat going. Matter of fact, I didn't even look today to see if anybody was on it. Hang on, let me switch over here because I was kind of. Yep. Hopefully, I didn't cut you guys off. No, well, we got several of the guys. Earl and Gavin and Bob D and Brandon are all on this morning. Yeah, I guess you guys had an early morning too, but we appreciate you guys listening. And we'll be on Wednesday morning, God willing. How is it? God willing, and the creek don't rise, Craig. So
yeah.
All right, guys. Have a good morning, a safe drive, and happy hunting there. Keep digging, and God bless.